Hello everyone, I'm Nicole Spitler of All Designs Equine. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to do a short tutorial on painting a jacket. I'm going to show you what I do pretty much start to finish, and then maybe you can follow along. You can use a t-shirt, a jacket, anything, any kind of clothing that you want to use. I'm going to be using a soft shell jacket today, and let's get started. Okay, so I sketched this last night, and you can also just use a picture if you want to, just so you know what you want to put on your clothing. But this is something I sketched because I'm an artist, so I can do that. And someone had requested a dressage horse head, maybe a little bit Baroque looking. So I sketched this out, and then I used my wood burning tool and I created a stencil with that. And that way I can put it and start the process of getting the image on my jacket. So you can use a wood burning tool or a stencil tool or anything similar to that. It will work. This is actually just plastic sheets that I got at the dollar store. It's something they use to put in between like binders for a notebook. So this is just way cheaper than stencil paper. Since I do so many different designs, that's just the easiest way for me to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is pretty much figure out what color I want the horse. This horse is going to be kind of like white and gray. I usually do use a lot of color, but this particular lady did not want a lot of color. She wanted it to be kind of Andalusian-y looking. So I'm using white, and I have glitter paint in here, copper with glitter paint, black, blue, gold, crimson red, and some like lavender purple. This is kind of almost like a little bit darker than a periwinkle blue. So I'm going to use the dark black of the jacket to actually be my shadows. And that's going to be anything that's going to be receding in the picture. It's just a lot easier, and also you don't have to use as much paint. But regular acrylic paint works great. Fabric paint is what I generally use so that you can wash it and it stays really good. And then I'm going to try to figure out the middle, which is about here. Sometimes the middle is more like a visual weight of the middle of the jacket, because the middle might be more over here or more over here, but the bulk of the heaviness of the horse head is going to be right here. So that's where I'm going to kind of place it. And then I might move it just slightly this way, since the neck is going to be a major factor. But if you're really doing it by the point of the ear, it actually isn't going to be the middle. It's just going to be what will look like the middle, if that makes sense. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is mix my white. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. And my glitter paint right here, I'm just going to kind of mix it like that. And then I'm going to start just putting the stencil paint down. And my actual art is not a realistic art. Someone once said to me, and I kind of like this definition, that I do like ethereal art that is based on realism. So it's definitely more impressionistic, definitely not realistic, but the balance of it should be fairly realistic. So that was a good description that I didn't even come up with. Somebody else came up with it, and I loved it. I thought that was perfect. So this just gives me the basic outline. So there is actually a lot that goes into this. Like I said, making the design, figuring it out, sketching it out. And sometimes painting it is actually not the hardest part, but it's all the steps prior that make it a more longer process. So, and I'm going to gently lift it up And there is my outline. Okay, so I'm going to start laying down the white paint, and this is going to make the horse look basically gray. And like, I have an idea what I'm going to do, but I don't always know exactly what I'm going to do. So when I paint, I kind of, like I said, I'm more of an impressionistic painter. So I'm just going to start filling in the base. This horse, like I said, is white and kind of gray. So I'm going to just start lightly kind of filling in where it's going to be. So it's very good to try to study your subject. And I know, because I was a horse trainer, I know a lot about the horse's face, which definitely helps. So here I lost the ear, but I know there's an ear that's going to go that way. I don't know what happened to the ear, but put it right in here. Okay. And this is like the point of the cheek. That will be a highlight. And then we have the jawbone. And because this is a 3/4 view, it isn't going to be, it's going to be a little trickier. You have to know where the bones of the horse's face are. So this is like the forehead right here, and there's 2 bones that come on either side of where the forehead goes. And here would be where the nostril, the nose bone, the muzzle is. And this part here where the nose and the muzzle kind of meet is going to be like a separate shape. And we're going to want it to be a little bit darker down here so it recedes. And like with the nostril, it will always be darker toward the inside and lighter toward the outside. And once I get my basic colors down, I'm going to reach for a smaller brush. This is like a medium-sized flat brush. You have to just kind of be willing to make mistakes, which I do all the time. So this is where like the shoulder would be, the point of the shoulder, the chest, and we're just gonna let that be kind of left to the imagination. So I'm just going to keep laying down stuff here, and then I'm going to go back in and add more details. So this is giving it like its little smoky gray look. All right, so I do know that on either side of this bone, we're going to have to make it a little bit darker. And I will go back in with some paint at the very end and really accentuate where I want it darker. But see, I loaded the brush a little bit, and you can see where there's like a black line that I left because I loaded the brush and I kind of made an outline in a weird kind of a way, but that's what I did. Okay. And I'm going to add a little bit of color in here. So here's where the point of the cheek is. Here's the jaw that brings up into the cheekbone, this whole thing right here. And I'm just going to add just like a little bit of color because I like to paint with color. And then here's your nostril. And then there's the airway right here, which is always receded. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna take anything that's receding is going to be dark. Anything that's going to be closer toward us is going to be light. So here's the nostril. And we're going to highlight it right there. I'm going to switch brushes because I can get a little better detail with a little bit different size brush. And every time you paint on a different piece of clothing, the paint accepts it differently. So this is different than if I'm painting on like 100% cotton. So I also have to just figure out, ooh, let me see how this this paint is being accepted by the apparel. This is like a cotton polyester blend, which still does keep the paint well through washing, but it doesn't really soak into the jacket very well. Okay, so I'm going to actually have to keep going back in and just playing with what I like and what I don't like. I'm definitely going to be adding just like little hints of gold here and there, a little bit of color, but for the most part it is going to be a gray horse, but I like to paint with a lot of color. So that is what I'm going to do, because that's what I like. So once again, I'm going to try to darken right where the nostril, like the airway, disappears into the horse. So that is going to be darker, and then the outside is going to be just a little bit lighter. And if you look at a horse's nostril, it's usually like really wide down here and then thinner up here. But this particular jacket, I have never painted on this material before, and I can definitely tell it's a little different than normal because the paint is not, it's not accepting the paint super well. So when that happens, I will generally have to let this dry and then go back into it. So here we have where the nostril is, and there will be like, this will be receded, so this will be a little bit darker. Okay, and then this will be a little lighter. We can soften it up a little bit. Okay, then we're gonna just keep going in here. This is always, like I said, the cheek is going to be lighter. This is where the sun would hit it. Use a little bit of copper in here. Just keep dabbing that. We don't want big globs of blue, so I will come back in here and define that a little bit more, where this will be lighter and this will be a little darker. The trickiest part of painting the horse is always the eye. And the eye has, a horse's eye has like an oval or rectangular pupil, but we don't want to paint a big black rectangle there because it'll make it look like it's an alien. So what I like to do is kind of create that by painting a little bit around it. Kind of doing like a little bit of a half moon there. And then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to paint the eyelid. Okay. And then there is a little bit of the tear duct, which we're going to take a little darker paint, black in this case, and make a little tear duct. We want to keep everything from being really harsh though. And then we're going to do the eyelashes. Now, a horse's eyelashes might be really tiny right here, and then they get longer at the corner. So this is a little tricky because you don't want, like I said, you don't want to make it look like it has mascara. And you kind of just flick it up a little bit. And then maybe just the tiniest bit right there. Like just the accent of it. And then the same thing on the lower lid. We're gonna actually draw a little bit of a, not draw, but we're gonna add a little bit of a lid right there. And the eye is round, but you see, instead of like really focusing on just the eyeball itself, we're going to kind of paint around it. And then I'm just going to, so that's a little bit harsh right there. But you can always go back and fix things that you don't like. That's the good thing about paint. And so I'm gonna come back in here. Like I said, I normally do 2 coats of paint, which in this particular tutorial, I'm probably not going to do that right now, but I'm going to lay down the paint and then I'll show you the final product because I have to let it dry. So there's a big indentation, as you, I'm sure, are well aware, above the horse's eye. That's the eye socket. So once again, we're gonna lay down black. Okay. And maybe I will come back in and show you what I'm going to do, because I do add some like squirty paint at the end. That's just what I do, because that's what I like to do. And once again, I'm not a realistic painter, so I like to add a little bit of strange flair. What can I say? So this is a little bit of gold, a little blue, a little copper. And like I said, here's this jaw, which is going to be, we're gonna have dark paint around this area, okay? And I'm gonna kind of leave the jacket, leave it there, because it'll be even darker. You see, I'm putting black here, but this is blacker than my black. So I'm going to actually use the jacket to my advantage. And here is like where the headstall, the brow band would be. Here's the top of the bridle. So we're going to follow the curve of the horse. Obviously, it's not going to go straight across, because the horse its neck is flipping over this way. And if we would just paint it straight across, it's going to really look strange, because we want to follow the horse's head. And here we have the braids, which I just paint really cute little swirls, okay? And then there's a space where you've gathered up the braid, and then here would be another little cute knot. The horse has it's at a 3/4 angle, but the horse's neck is coming up, and it's kind of then looking at us. So this part of the neck is going to be showing on the other side, and the braids are going to be coming up this way. So it's like when you're riding your horse, if you flip your horse to the left, the whole crest of the horse's neck will flip, and it's sort of like that. If your horse is doing what it's supposed to be, that is. So here is another little knot right here. And then here's where you would gather the braid. There's the knot. Here's where you would gather it. Here's the knot. Here's where you would gather it. Here's the knot. Excuse me. And just continue to follow it down. So it doesn't have to look, like I said, it's not a realistic painting. It's just kind of like the idea of it. Now, here's the throat latch, which we're going to follow where it's going to kind of disappear, because the horse is quote unquote on the bit, and this throat latch is going to disappear. Obviously, it's good if you have a picture and you try to follow the picture. But horses are made up a lot of different shapes, and it does take practice, but practice does make perfect. So I'm just going to kind of pretend like I know where the light is going to be hitting. And here again is this eye bone. And on either side of it, it is lighter, and then in here in the socket is darker because it really recedes. I'm gonna keep doing that. And the bridle, you can do whatever you want with your bridle. If you want to have a black and white with the piping here, but regardless, even if it isn't that way, it's going to be highlighted because you're going to see this is closer, and then tucked in here, it's going to be darker. It's going to be a shadow behind that. And you can just go in and, like I said, you can play with it and see what you like. But you can see it's starting to take a little bit of shape, a little bit better. And the bit, I mean, we can make the bit gold or silver or whatever color we want. And I'm just going to do a simple circle, but where the bit, the snaffle part goes in the horse's mouth is going to have, it's going to show. If you ever watch your horse or know, you'll see that there's this little part of the bit that's still on the side of the horse's mouth. Okay, and that's where the mouth is going to be. I don't usually get real detailed with the mouth because just a little hint that it's there. And we're going to, once again, here's where the bridle is going to connect. And here's where the silver buckles are. And like I said, I just go in and I just hit it real. Doesn't have to be perfect, just like almost like a hint that it's there. This part definitely needs some work. Okay, and then I'm just going to have a little bit of color. I'm going to add a little bit of color here and there, just because it looks a little more exciting to me. Just little hints of color. Okay, and I'm going to let that dry a little bit, and I'm going to come back and we're going to finish it up. Okay, I decided to add a little red, little hints of red in it too, just to give it a little extra. It's mostly dry. So I'm just going to come back in the eye and give a little few points of light, which usually I do like 2 little dots right here, just to add a little extra life to the eye, a little bit of an eyelash over here. And then here's the other part of the cheekbone over on that side that I needed to add in. And then I'm going to add a little contour right on the bone right there. And going to add the part of the bridle that attaches to the noseband, right, probably right behind here. And then we're going to go back and I like to add a lot of black to the painting because it's very important to have a lot of receding, and I'll do it like pretty much right where the bridle is. I'm not lining it, even though it looks like I am. I'm just kind of adding some shadows. And also in the horse's head right here, there's usually a little indentation in the bone right here. So I'm going to low light that a bit. And just to give a little bit more depth, I'm going, and because this is a 3/4 view, I'm going to low light that. I did that a little bit too much. I'll go back in and fix that later. And then I'm going to come back in the nostril, and right, because this paint wasn't adhering very well to the jacket, I'm going to low light in here around where the bit ring is, where the rein is. And there's buckles right here, which we're going to come back in with white to highlight that. And we're going to come back in and kind of, so by coming back in here and making some dark, it's going to accentuate the light at the same time. And we're going to come back in here right where this bone is here. And then we're once again going to add a little light to the bone again. And there's a buckle right here, or not a buckle, where all the reins and the pieces attach coming through here. So we're going to just accentuate that a little bit. And just by using a lot of shadow and light, it creates the shape of the horse. And then here's the crown piece. I come back in here and I did a little bit too much there. And if that happens, you know, you can take it away or you can just add some more paint. And then we're going to come back in here with a little bit with the knots. I just kind of like go with what I feel. So, I mean, every artist is different and they have their own way that they do things. It is actually hard to paint and talk because it's a completely different part of your brain. Art and talking are different parts of your brain. So I always do have a little bit of a hard time doing that. And then we're going to come back up through here a little bit. Now we're going to add a little bit of white for some final highlights. Once again, like where the buckles would be, just little tips of the ears here, where the knots are, part of the nose band. Or any place that needs. So a lot of times I'll darken something and then I'll come back in and re-lighten it up again. So it's like there's a lighter part and then it gets lighter, lighter, lighter. Then there's the darker gray and then it gets darker, darker. And just to see where the buckles would be here and where the rain comes through. And you can see it's not an exact thing. And I don't always do everything right either because I'm sometimes talking or not paying attention, but this is going to be lighter also because of course the sun or the light is going to be hitting the top of the horse's poll. And there you go. I'm going to add maybe some gold into it and some sparkles, but for the most part this is done. Sign it. And there you go. All done. Obviously, if you would like this design and you want to purchase this, I will link it in the description below, or go ahead and try to do your own. I would love to actually see it if somehow people can leave their pictures in the comments. All right, thank you. Until next time.